Why did I edit a video in 3 days again? Have I learned nothing from my past mistakes? I blame you. You stupid mobile game for this. Constantly eating away at my life as I save orbs for the next waifu to add to my armada. You are the source of all my problems. Oh, would you look at that? I think I just figured out how to make an intro, but have failed to figure out how to make one that relates to the video in any fashion. Oh well. Yep, it's been 2 years, sorry European viewers, since the release of Fates in North America. Hey, at least with the Switch not being region locked this time, and Echo setting record precedents for the time between Japanese and international releases, we won't have another fiasco like that again. At least you all got bravely second before us. Yeah, I never beat the game either. But I have beat all 3 paths of Fates, and they varied in quality depending on the path and or point in the game's narrative. But I think there are good enough chapters in all 3 of the paths to warrant celebrating the game's 2-year anniversary with this type of video. Fair warning though, Conquest is my favorite of the 3, and by a large margin. The order I played these games in was Conquest, Birthright, and then Revelations, and I typically play Fire Emblem games on Hard Classic, but I have some experience with Lunatic for Birthright and Conquest, not Revelations though. But before we get started, I need to stress that the chapters I enjoy are arbitrarily determined by whatever my brain says it likes, and that this list is not one that seeks to rank the best objective maps of Fate, but is meant to be an entertaining video for you to watch, and then rip apart at your own discretion afterwards. Anyways, I've gone on long enough, let's get started. I think the hardest part about playing the path you didn't choose in Fate is knowing that you'll have to face the family you just spent an entire game bonding with. Since Conquest has you running the gauntlet by picking off the Hoshin siblings one by one, I was terrified of what the Norin siblings would offer as a challenge. Considering Birthright is the easiest of the 3 paths, their maps were disappointingly easy. I don't think Camilla got that memo though. I already know what some of you were thinking.
Wow, Omni, you're such Camilla trash that you even like her shitty chapters in Birthright. Gosh, you're so immature for liking boobs so much.
Okay, first off, how does liking boobs make me immature? That's a sign of puberty, which is a literal definition of, you know what? YouTube doesn't pay me enough to be your sex ed teacher. Even though you already went around with Camilla before reuniting with Ryoma and the true flyer waifu of Birthright, that was not enough to get her to do everything in her power to stop you from reaching Garen. Now remember what I said about playing Hard Classic? Yeah, I've heard the nightmares about the seemingly endless reinforcements in Lunatic. I can imagine that wasn't fun to deal with. They're still there in hard mode, but nowhere near as obnoxious. What I like about this chapter is it feels like I'm getting a little taste of Conquest again, as the game finally incentivizes me to push forward and not just take my time. I have to rush my units across the map to get to Camilla to get her to stop nuking half my army at the start of each turn. And it's not completely unfair, as the game gives you some spaces that are immune to Camilla's Fire Blast. This chapter offers a good risk-reward incentive because you can cheese this map by turtling if you want, but the game punishes you for it, and your reward for pushing forward is getting Camilla to stop blowing me up and have an easier time with the remaining reinforcements. It's just a shame that it took this long to get a halfway decent challenge from Birthright. In Birthright, you don't reach Garen until the end of the game, but if you side with Nor, the dried out Santa Claus greets you by questioning why you aren't dead, only to send you on a mission that's another death sentence. My dad's done worse. I think? Opening chapters can make or break a game. You have to find that nice balance to reel the player in, and I think A Dragon's Decree strikes that nice balance for me personally. I think this map serves as a great introduction to a lot of the key features in Conquest. First, you see that positioning is pivotal as the game gives you limited defensive terrain and choke points to work with, emphasizing that a balance between offense and defense is needed, as if you rush too far ahead onto the bridge in front of you, you'll be cut off from your allies that join you as you progress through the map, but if you stay too close to the starting point, you'll be overwhelmed by the faceless that even your reinforcements will struggle against. This map has me work to find the right solution instead of just having an NPC tell me what to do. Show, don't tell. It's a fundamental principle that applies to writing, but translates to other mediums as well. Instead of telling me about defensive terrain, the game puts forest tiles near me so I can see that if I fight while positioned on one, I'll be at an advantage. The game doesn't tell me to use choke points, but instead has narrow paths that show me that enemy movement is restricted at these areas and that I could use my units to make a blockade if I wanted to. This chapter also makes sure you're aware of enemy skills, as most of the faceless have Poison Strike on this map, but instead of having Lilith say something like,
"These are special faceless that spit poison at you," I just felt the need to tell you since I think you're too stupid to figure that out yourself, like the dumbass you are for choosing to come back to a father that clearly wants to kill you.
I take 4 extra damage after combat and scroll over the faceless and say, oh, that's what that does. I might be over-exaggerating these little, potentially unintentional details, but when a boss or level lays out all of the pieces I need to win and has me figure out the solution, I can't help but feel like I accomplished something. The entire first half of Revelations can be summed up as an abridged version of both Conquest and Birthright, and so, a natural stop would be Circensia, as it's where Azura had her major performance in both paths. Well, I look forward to seeing what song they wrote Azura in this oh sweet ceiling dragon, what the fuck happened here? Come on, if I'm talking about good maps in Revelation, I'm either talking about this one or the snow shoveling map in an ironic fashion. Chapter 13 of Revelations, A Lost Peace, pits you in a fatal four-way as the Valite army has left Circensia in ruin, and the Hoshiden and Norian armies are busy having a dick measuring contest over who expanded first, even though the Valites are decimating a town right in front of them. I'm not defending the setup of this map, as it's as forced as can be, but at least it isn't a recycled map like the last two were. What makes this chapter unique is how it uses a mechanic from a Conquest paralogue of all things, and just like that map, it's used once or twice before being forgotten. The real selling point of this map is how Ryoma, Xander, and their retainers, or in Ryoma's case Scarlet, are all enemy units that you can take out. The game expects you to hard commit to one side and stop the Valite soldiers that way, but where's the fun in that? I'm a complete sucker for maps where you divide and conquer, and you'll see that as a recurring theme throughout this top 10, don't you worry, because that is my strategy of choice in most Fire Emblem games, and when the map is designed in a way that lets me make full use of those tactics, you've sold me more than a summer Steam sale. This map makes sure it knows you're dealing with pre-promotes though, as Ryoma has 25 speed, Xander with 25 strength, and keep in mind, both of these two have their legendary weapons equipped, meaning picking them off at range is not going to be the easiest task. Scarlet may be a glorified meat shield for Ryoma, but you're forced to take her out if you want to go toe-to-toe with the big meaty claws. But the satisfaction you get from taking them down is oh so sweet. Even though I said I'd be biased towards Conquest, I've managed to represent all 3 paths in the first 3 entries, and now we've come full circle as we're talking about my favorite Birthright map, Dark Reunion. This one kind of snuck up on me, as it wasn't until chapter 14 in Conquest where Azura donned her dark dress and sung the better version of Lost in Thoughts, so I was pleasantly surprised to see that just 6 chapters in, we were getting to hear the Birthright version, which is still good, but come on, that Norian version is something else. Unlike most chapters in Birthright, this one has a gimmick to it, and it's a nice change of pace given how Birthright has the name Birthroute associated with it, because every map in the game is either a route or a boss kill map. This was the first time that the game decided to not follow the status quo, and made this an escape mission of all things. When I saw this for the first time, I was pretty sure that this would be an easy mission, but then all of a sudden, the moment I saw Xander charge me, I knew. Shit just got real. I mean, look at the man's stats for crying out loud. They're higher here than when you fight him towards the end of the game. While you could just make a beeline for the exit via the Hinoka copter, there's a chest near Garen that's begging for me to pry it open. This is when the map gets hectic, as it's a race against time to reach the chest and get Corrin out of dodge, or face Xander head on, which leads to your almost certain death at this point in the game. Now if you didn't use a flyer by this point, you could use the Dragon Vein at the bottom, but it's a trap! Yeah, but you didn't see that one coming from Birthright of all games. But should you use the Dragon Vein, the ice created only gives the enemy the chance to bomb rush you and leads to your imminent demise. This is easily the best map in Birthright, as it offers good incentive to push forward, mixed up the standard formula up until this point, and forced me to use careful but calculated strategy. I find that many stories nowadays feel the need to establish a grand hero character that was this great, honorable hero that did great stuff before the game. Examples include everything you've seen on screen at this point. The one that Fates tries to use is the Rainbow Sage. I know that was an awkward transition, and that there might be better examples of this in Fates, like Garen or Sumeragi, but I needed to set this up, and I'm scripting this at 2 AM, so cut me some slack, dammit. Chapter 11 of Conquest, Rainbow Sage, has you climbing a mountain to get the Rainbow Sage back from the Hoshidans, where Hinoka hovers in your way. The layout of the chapter is simplistic, as it is segmented into separate floors which enemies can't move through, that converge into one big room that ultimately leads to Hinoka. The gimmick of this map is that each floor has a specific type of enemy. However, the interesting part is once you take out the first wave of enemies, the next floor has enemies that directly counter the ones you just fought, putting you at a disadvantage. After you use the weapon triangle advantage against the archers, you find the next floor has ninjas. Once you take out the floor filled with generic fighters, your beefy units now have to take on mages. I like this setup because it requires you to make good use of pair-up, so that you can not only deal with the diverse array of enemies, but increase your options so that you are better prepared for the upcoming threat. Even after you clear those floors, the penultimate floor has life and death samurai that will kill you if you think Effie Emblem is the answer. The final floor is easy, as even though on Lunatic Hinoka's flyers do rush you, they're nothing too difficult to handle. This is also the chapter that starts limiting your units, so it forces you to start thinking long term. Chapter 11 is a nice change of pace after the previous chapter, since you get a map that lets you take things slow and steady, and gives you a chance to breathe. You finally made it. You've, hopefully, beaten both Birthright and Conquest, and you are ready to embark on the third path, Revelations. You failed to get Ryoma and Tanner to stop fighting, and thus, ashamed of your actions, you let Azura lead you to the bottomless canyon, where you commit a double seppuku by falling to the unspeakable world. I mean, what else do you expect when an attractive blue-haired songstress tells you to jump off a bridge and your avatar blindly follows? The first real chapter of Revelations is my favorite of the path because it plays up the mystery of the true enemy, Vala. This is the one and only Fog of War in all 3 Paths of Fates, and honestly, it's done pretty well. The main reason Fog of War sucks so much is because the AI has the unfair advantage of being able to see you while you can't see them, making it a pretty fucking garbage game mechanic since you literally can't strategize around it. But in Fates, the way Fog of War works here is that you enter a patch of darkness and then the enemies spawn immediately after while gaining complete visibility of the area. Thank fucking Naga it only took 14 games to get that right. This has you bait the enemy and formulate a reactive approach to the map as the enemies attack you, and then you think of your plan of action. You know, kind of like how a strategy game would handle something like this. The game still gives the AI the advantage by making the first move, but that's more of a minor inconvenience as going second is the preferred action unless you're trying to rush and LTC the map. I'm not only happy that this is the first non-bullshit Fog of War in an FE game, but I love its role in the narrative. You just entered a forbidden, unknown kingdom. Of course you're confused, and this confusion and lack of knowledge is translated into the gameplay through the Fog of War. I love that detail as the game is finally having me relate to the main character in a unique way. That detail, the music, the proper use of Fog of War, all these factors make this chapter a brilliant introduction to Revelations, which only makes the disappointing payoff sting that much more. The rest of the maps from here on out are Conquest maps. Cool, huh? Okay, I know that pun will probably be met with a cold reception in the comments, just like Chapter 8 of Conquest. This chapter's setup can be summed up in one sentence. Elise, despite being an adult because the game lets you tap that so they had to cover their asses, opens her mouth about the plan to suppress the Ice Tribe's rebellion, despite having unintentionally infiltrated their ranks. Thankfully, this map is as good as the setup is stupid. This is one of the most commonly talked about maps when people mention good ones in Conquest for a reason, and that reason is the goal of this map. There are 5 villages you can visit in this map, one of which you get for free, and another one you lose access to immediately, meaning you have to figure out how to get to 2 of the remaining 3 houses, all while keeping your units alive, as the sweet 10k reward for doing so is something you need, since Conquest is stingier with its money than Anna somehow. However, it's not as simple as divide and conquer. That seems to be a recurring theme in these maps now, doesn't it? As Flora is on this map, and will halt your progress with 2, and thanks Sealing Dragon it's only 2, uses of a free staff. The stop in mobility is bad enough as Azura hasn't joined you by this point, but the minus 20 avoid that comes with it is brutal this early on, meaning you better have your unit paired up if you want them to survive the oncoming fighters. This is also the first map to introduce Dragon Veins in Conquest, and just like with Dark Reunion, it's a trap! The only difference is that unlike Birthright and Revelations, Conquest Dragon Veins can either be the Hail Mary you need to clutch out or seize a map, or often lead to a good old LR start. This map rewards calculated risk and offers a pretty penny for those playing along, and the icing on the cake? This is an ice level that not only is gorgeous to look at, but it doesn't suck. Take that, Ilya. This is it. The invasion has begun. The entire game has built up the fight against you and your not blood royal family, and the first one we fight in Conquest is... Oh, come on, game! I know one of Xander's critical quotes is "no mercy," but this is a bit much, don't you think? Well, it's not as bad as it seems since the actual boss of this map is Yukimura, and I have no qualms taking his irrelevant ass out. This map is like Chapter 11 in that it is heavily segmented and compartmentalized. You have your army divided in two right from the get, as you are forced to move your 2 squadrons up the map to reunite and seize to win. Easier said than done, however, as there are a diverse array of enemies alongside Hana and Tsubaki blocking your paths on either side as you push forward. There's also the introduction of the Shuriken launcher that, while not dealing a lot of damage to your units, debuffs you a crap ton if hit, and slowly saps your stats so that the powerful reinforcements pick you off if you don't move fast enough. The box-like setup of this map means you have little room for error, as one misplaced unit can be killed off in an instant, further adding to the challenge of this map. There are Dragon Veins here that can help, but I never bothered using them since Sakura will immediately retaliate with her own Dragon Veins the next turn, and go all Gorbachev on your army as the walls collapse and it's do or die, as you have pretty much 1 turn left by that point to kill Yukimura, seize the map, or get annihilated in a massive bloodbath. As for Sakura, you can fight her, and... Look, I already gave Camilla 3 bags of Spirit Dust. The woman is out of control by this point, and it was either my head that faces the Bolt Axe or the Red Bean Mochi's head. I think I did the lesser of 2 evils by handling it myself. Stop judging me!
We're going to build a wall.
Ándale, ándale mis amigos, vámonos, 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 vamos a atacar este país, vamos a atacar al pared, nosotros vamos a invadir, nosotros vamos a invadir este país, arriba, arriba, arriba! I don't know if this is made less racist because I'm Hispanic, or more racist because I'm Hispanic. Since there's no way for me to recover from that one, I'll just get right into it. Takumi sets up at the Great Wall of Susano, and no, that name has no meaning here, even though they chose an all-powerful deity to name a wall after. And you must get by him to proceed. This map is unlike the other ones that we've seen on this list, as it doesn't have you split your army, but quite the opposite actually, as your options are limited in terms of how to approach this map. I know there are some crazy strategies that people can use to cheese this map, but I prefer to take it as it comes, since the map is designed in a way that gives the player a fair challenge. I almost get a JRPG dungeon vibe from this map, as each wave represents a floor of enemies I beat, with Hinata and Oboro serving as the mid-bosses. While you move closer and closer towards the seize point, Takumi and the other snipers will pellet you with ballista fire, and you'll be grateful that they aren't lethal. This map also pulls from a wide range of enemies, as you face snipers, Basara, Kinshinites, Spearmasters, and the whole shebang, as they are all here. But the real challenge of this map is the big bad Takumi, who has done quite a bit of training since you two last fought, as the madman now has Rend Heaven in his arsenal? Oh, give me a break. What did you even do to get that skill? Bang Oboro just use a partner seal and get an OP skill to kill us? Oh my! How could you do that to your own retainer that was clearly in love with you and has already suffered enough as is? Why don't you just jump off the wall or something, Takumi, and... Oh shit, the motherfucker actually did it. I call dibs on the Fujin Yumi. They said this map would go down in history, and they were right. This map is regarded as one of the best maps in Fire Emblem, and one of the worst depending on who you ask. It's obvious where I fall on the spectrum, as I'm going to talk about my favorite FE map, Chapter 10. You don't even have to say the name, Unhappy Reunion. You just say Chapter 10, and people know what you're talking about. Nintendo knew exactly what they were doing when they used this chapter to show all the big YouTube personalities what Conquest was about when they looked at the game. This viciously difficult map will chew you up and spit you out faster than anything caught in Corn's Dragonfang if you do not respect it. Chapter 10 has you arrive at a port where you encounter Hoshidan soldiers led by none other than the walking Angst Lord himself, Takumi. You are forced to stop him in a defense map of all things as you try your damnedest to protect 4 glowing green tiles behind your starting position on the map, because if so much as a single enemy gets by, it's game over and the AI knows it. This map would be leagues easier if the AI fought everything in their path, but there are flyers that spawn on the map in multiples, sometimes even paired up, and they'll straight up ignore you as they rush towards those tiles, leaving you to pluck them out of the sky during your player phase. But the flyers aren't the only threats here, as this chapter may not have the most diverse assortment of units, but it has units that can safely attack at range, such as ninjas, archers, and those throwing club fuckers that are all over the map. You're not completely defenseless though, as this chapter is kind enough to give you 2 ballistae that you can use to hit a cross-section of enemies to start chipping away at them, and that feeling of satisfaction I get when I nail a flyer down to 1 HP, oh, that's the good stuff. You also get a fire orb, but that's peanuts compared to the ballista, as it has much less range given its placement on the map. However, the game gives you the biggest advantage at the start of turn 3, where Selena and Beruka show up alongside Camilla. Regardless of how much you hate Camilla, I'd love to see a run where this woman isn't the star of the show, because her bases are exactly what you need on this map. She can one-round most enemies, has enough defense to tank even the most obnoxious threats, and has the courtesy to come with range utility as well. I know a fire tome isn't much, but you'll be glad she has the capacity to double at range and not die after doing so. Selena and Beruka aren't as useful because you're comparing them to fucking Camilla, but Beruka's flying utility helps in killing stray flyers you may have missed, and becomes a tank that's on par with Effie if you train her up. As for Selena, while nothing too impressive in this map, if trained properly, she can become a real powerhouse, but here, she's another sword that can take on some savages at least. There's also the houses on this map, as the ones nearby net you some easy cash and loot, but you have to work for those other 2, as Takumi's retainers Hinata and Oboro keep nearby, and you'll have to survive a round of combat with Oboro to get that Draco shield, and to get that dual club early on, you need to sacrifice Camilla's mobility for a turn. Yes, I said Camilla's and not Beruka's, as it's moments like these that make me wish Kanto was in the game. Hinata himself isn't too much of a threat, if you deal with him on player phase that is, and not on enemy phase, for on enemy phase, his armored blow skill has him take virtually 0 damage in retaliation. All this already makes for a great setup, but I haven't even gotten to the best part. Once things seem to be going smoothly, at the start of turn 7, Takumi ramps up the difficulty even higher by activating the Dragon Vein underneath him, draining the harbor of all its water, thereby opening up the map on all sides, poking about 17.5 different holes into your current strategy. The enemy can now move through these tiles, and you have to do your best to cover as much territory as possible, slowing the oncoming front for just 4 more turns. It's at this point Chapter 10 won me over, as it reminded me that I'm fighting the Hoshidan Royal Army for crying out loud, and that I need to be at my best in order to stand a chance. I have not seen any other map like this in any FE game I've played, and I love all of the intricate details that went into planning it. That's why Chapter 10 is my favorite map, not just of Fates, but of Fire Emblem in general. And those are my top 10 chapters in Fire Emblem Fates. Let me know your guys' top 10, or just your favorite, either from each of the 3 paths, or just do one of the paths, or your favorite path, or whatever. Just let me know in the comment section down below what your favorite chapter is, and I'd love to hear it. I read most of the comments whenever I can, whenever I'm not busy with school and stuff like that. And I also want to say, follow me on Twitter, because I say a lot of stuff there. You can keep up with me and all the things I have planned, and it would mean a lot to me as well. I'm literally recording this an hour before the video goes live because I lost the outro audio like an idiot. I just stuttered there because I'm tired. Spent most of my day editing this, and then you heard the intro. 3 days, man. I'm gonna get up out of here because I am exhausted. Peace.